This is The Mint live on ZTN Prime, your sneak peek into the world of business, finance and economies. I'm Ibn Mabunda. Let's get started. Coming up, now what looks like your favorite premium whiskey or vodka on store shelves or bars may in fact be a dangerous imitation brewed in backyards and bottled in unregulated conditions. These counterfeit products often contain harmful substances like methanol and industrial-grade ethanol, posing severe health risks including blindness, organ failure, and even death. We take a look at a report. The Postal and Telecommunications Regulatory Authority of Zimbabwe, POTRAZ, has announced that the country's telecommunications industry is positioned for strong growth driven by the deployment of fifth-generation 5G technology and the entry of global low-Earth orbit satellite service giant Starlink. The Israel-Iran conflict is sending shockwaves through African markets, particularly those dependent on imported oil, as rising prices and potential supply chain disruptions threaten to exacerbate inflation and economic stability across the continent of Africa. ASX and VFX listed Caledonia Mining Corporation PLC has announced further encouraging results from its ongoing resource expansion drilling program at the Blanket mine, in which it holds a 64% stake. JSA listed used vehicle buyer and seller We Buy Cars is considering selling new cars alongside its new used vehicle offering. The Public Investment Corporation and British International Investment have signed a memorandum of understanding to strengthen collaboration on investment opportunities across Africa. Green Air Mobility, represented by Air Texas and Trainer Aircraft with carbon-free power systems, is a major highlight at the ongoing 55th Paris Air Show at Le Bourget Airport, underscoring global decarbonization efforts. And US dollar firmed on Monday as nervy investors sought safety, although the restrained move suggests markets were waiting for Iran's response to US attacks on its nuclear sites that have exacerbated conflict in the Middle East. Now the Mint will be right back. Don't go anywhere. You're watching The Mint as we come to you from Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. I'm Ibn Mabunda. Now we take a look at our stories in detail. Now, what looks like your favorite premium whiskey or vodka on store shelves or in bars may in fact be a dangerous imitation brewed in backyards and bottled in unregulated conditions. These counterfeit products often contain harmful substances like methanol and industrial-grade ethanol, posing severe health risks including blindness, organ failure, and even death. We get more from the following report.
Behind the sleek labels and sealed caps of some spirits sold in Zimbabwe lies a toxic crisis: the rise of counterfeit alcohol. From smuggled brand imitations to locally brewed knockoffs, fake booze is not just a health risk. It is an attack on intellectual property, a drain on public revenue, and a growing threat to legitimate business and trade. At the heart of the issue is a glaring gap in IP enforcement, with counterfeiters exploiting weak monitoring systems and public ignorance, flooding the market with lookalike bottles of whiskey, brandy, and vodka. The consequences are deadly. Counterfeit alcohol violates the trademarks and trade dress of local and international brands. Bottles are often recycled, labels forged, and security features mimicked, causing damage to brand reputation and consumer trust. IP lawyer Nathaniel Manjaro says, Zimbabwe has many forms of legislation that are meant to combat brand counterfeiting, even in the alcohol industry, and it's a matter of enforcing these laws.
Zimbabwe has many forms of legislation that are, meant to combat brand counterfeiting, even in the alcohol industry. For example, we have the Trademarks Act, we have the Custom and Excise Act, and many other legislation that are all just meant to protect and make sure that people don't get sold with fake alcohol. For example, under the Trademarks Act, as well as the Custom and Excise Act, there are criminal as well as civil penalties to ensure that people who are caught with these forms of alcohol punished, or you can sue them in your own personal capacity, or you can enforce or ask the relevant authorities to make sure that it's done. Like, for example, under the Customs and Excise Act, you have board enforcement of IP rights. So, for example, if you know that a particular person is going to come up in the border and they're going to be selling a particular alcohol brand, you can enforce the authorities, inform Zinra, you can enforce, Customs and Excise to make sure that that's not done.
For government and licensed businesses, the impact is no less painful. Formal businesses like Delta Corporation, Zimbabwe's largest beverage manufacturer, shrinking margins and unfair competition have been recorded.
Counterfeit alcohol poses a significant threat not only to public health and consumer safety, but also to the integrity of trusted brands, such as those owned by Delta Beverages. While we are not in a position to quantify the exact sales impact due to the clandestine nature of such activities, we have observed as a company that increased market distortions, particularly in informal trading spaces where illicit products are sold at lower prices without the necessary quality controls. These facts undermine consumer trust, compromise brand equity, and distort fair competition in the market. Delta continues to invest heavily in brand protection, secure packaging technologies, and public awareness campaigns.
From an economic standpoint, the counterfeit crisis undermines trade confidence and deters investment.
I quite agree with you that the recent past in Zimbabwe has witnessed an upsurge in illicit beer industry. This is partly caused by high persistent inflation, high unemployment, and low wages, which have cumulatively weakened disposable family income. And this has macroeconomic implications. It erodes the tax revenue. It also leads to the erosion of the formal sector employment. It also leads to the distortion and unfair competition between the formal and the informal market. This also has a lot of health hazards because these are produced in ways that are not controlled.
From emergency rooms to boardrooms, Zimbabwe is grappling with the price of fake alcohol, and it's steep. Intellectual property is more than legal paperwork. It's a safeguard for health, economic integrity, and national credibility. Until the counterfeit trade is brought to heel, the cost will keep rising in lives, livelihoods, and lost potential. For ZTN Prime, I'm Cecilia Kamputa in Harare.
Cecilia, thank you for giving us that mouth-watering report. Of course, for consumers of these products, you'd want to think about these two cases, the case of kidney failure and even possible death. Is it worth a $2 or $3 cheap alternative, or you'd want to make sure that you get even the pricier mode of alcohol, but still maintaining your health consciousness? Food for thought, of course. Thank you once again, Cecilia, for giving us that report. The Postal and Telecommunications Regulatory Authority of Zimbabwe has announced that the country's telecommunications industry is positioned for strong growth, driven by deployment of fifth-generation technology and the entry of global low-Earth orbit satellite service giant Starlink. The sector is projected to experience accelerated growth due to the increasing adoption of emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and machine learning. According to the Portra's first quarter 2025 sector performance report, a very small aperture terminal subscriptions registered a 32% increase in the first 3 months of the year. The report stated that this is attributed to the continued increase in Starlink subscriptions. Starlink, which falls under the VSAT umbrella, saw subscriptions surge to 30,900 in the first quarter, up from 23,400 in the same period last year. Starlink officially launched in Zimbabwe in September 2024 and has quickly gained popularity due to its low-cost satellite internet service. The US headquartered internet service provider has significantly impacted the Zimbabwean internet market, with initial reports indicating 20,000 new subscribers registered in the first 4 months of the year. Overall, the total number of active internet or data subscriptions for the quarter increased by 0.45% on 2024 levels, reaching 11.9 million in the first quarter of 2025. However, the internet penetration rate declined by 1.37 percentage points to 76.19% in the first quarter of this year. This was due to a higher change in the population figure compared to the increase in internet or data subscriptions. Time to take a breather after the break. African analysts warn of potential disruptions in trade and as Israel and Iran tensions escalate. The mentor will be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Harare. Tune into the beat.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, your source for news, business, sports, fashion, and more.
Experience the pulse of Harare's culture and lifestyle.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, Harare's top radio station.
Join the conversation with Zimbabwe's top personalities.
Subscribe now for fresh and infotainment content daily.
Capital 100.4 FM, Harare's heartbeat.
Pardon?
Look up.
Oh!
Okay.
Okay.
I'm Ollie J, your host and captain for this technological voyage.
They say that curiosity killed the cat. Well, we say curiosity makes you swipe.
Okay, there's a real big one. Oh, okay.
Okay, take the elevator.
Okay,
Where they
that
going?
one
Look
came
up,
out of
Look
the-
up.
From some tech-tastic adventures to some out-of-this-world Zimbabwean inventions to the scientifically mind-boggling, we show it all.
What we're looking at is two charging ports to charge the vehicle.
And things get electric. Catch Swipe right here on ZTN Prime, DSTV channel 294.
Didn't graduate. I guess I blew it.
You couldn't advise him anything. He would just look at you and say, so who do you think you are?
We were just like really spoiled.
And then they just give me the receipt and I'd pay.
The guy walks in one day and then he says that he wants to make a movie.
He was blowing the money.
There was just like this habit that he had where as soon as he got money, it was gone.
I just didn't have the skills or the experience.
This money, I could see it disappear so fast.
Welcome back to the Mentor, broadcasting to you from Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. I'm Eben Mabunda. Now, the Iran-Israel conflict is sending shockwaves through African markets, particularly those dependent on imported oil, as rising prices and potential supply chain disruptions threaten to exacerbate inflation and economic instability across the continent. Analysts warn a prolonged conflict could trigger inflationary pressures and fuel shortages further destabilizing economies already grappling with global uncertainties. The conflict between Israel and Iran is already pushing up crude oil prices and raising fears of potential supply disruptions in the Middle East. According to Goldman Sachs' recently revised assessment of geopolitical risk in oil markets, Brent crude prices could climb by $10 per barrel. Experts caution that if the Strait of Hormuz, a critical oil transit choke point that's controlled by Iran, is disrupted, prices could skyrocket. Mustafa Ali, an international relations expert, says the rise in prices of oil is going to affect African countries that rely on fossil fuel.
Prices for energy goods like oil, petroleum is going to rise, and that is going to affect many African countries that primarily rely on the fossil fuel to run their industries and to power their cars in the transport industry and factories.
Now, Iran's parliament has voted to shut down the vital Hormuz shipping channel in retaliation against Donald Trump's attack on the country, prompting fears of a sharp spike in oil prices that could cause a global recession. Kavins Adir, an economic analyst, said Africa has to take up strategic repositioning to understand the dynamics of the conflict and what it means for them domestically.
Africa has to take up a strategic repositioning to understand the dynamics of the conflict and what it means for them domestically. And this means talking to populations around what is expected and what the likelihood of this conflict is going to be.
Now, some analysts argue that the strikes will undermine a global stability. Peter Kagbanja, President and CEO of Africa Policy Institute, had this to say.
We have no future in unilateralism. We have no future in hegemony. We have no future in preemptive attacks. Our future is in a strong multilateral order.
Well, of course, markets are set to respond even further after the response that's been taken by Iran where that canal is concerned. We continue to follow that developing story, and of course, we'll be feeding you with more tinsy-winsies in our News Plus at 8 p.m. Central African Time. Caledonia Mining Corporation, which is listed on the Australian Stock Exchange as well as on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, has announced further encouraging results from its ongoing resource expansion drilling program at the Blanket Mine, in which it holds a 64% stake. The latest underground drilling results point to high-grade mineralization and expanding potential across key ore zones, reinforcing the long-term viability of the mine. The campaign, conducted between January 2024 and April 2025, involved 6,700 meters of underground drilling across the Blanket, Eroica, and Lima ore bodies, three of the mine's most significant mineralized zones. The objective is to improve confidence in existing mineral resource estimates and explore further potential at depths below the 34 level. Preliminary findings show that the Blanket and Eroica ore bodies contain grades and widths exceeding expectations, while the Lima ore body continues below the 22 level. Additionally, a new potential ore body has been intersected within the Blanket area, boasting impressive grades and widths. Caledonia CEO Mark Learmonth expressed optimism over the results, saying that the ongoing drilling campaign continues to deliver excellent grades and widths, in many cases surpassing previous campaigns. These results enhance their confidence in the existing resource base and signal future growth potential. Learmonth was very much optimistic, expressing that positive findings may support an increase in the overall mineral resource estimate and extend the mine's life. He highlighted that significant investment over the past 7 years has equipped Blanket Mine with the infrastructure to sustain higher production volumes in the long term. The current drilling is concentrated on the Blanket and Eroica zones with newly developed crosscuts, enabling optimal access to deeper ore bodies. Caledonia says more updates will follow as drilling progresses. The latest results follow an earlier update issued on January 30, 2024, and form part of Caledonia's broader strategy to secure sustained gold production and unlock further mineral value at Blanket Mine. JSE listed used vehicle buyer and seller We Buy Cars is considering selling new cars alongside its used vehicle offering. Chief Marketing Officer Rikus Blomeras confirmed on Friday that some original equipment manufacturers have reached out to inquire if it would be possible for We Buy Cars to also sell new cars. Blomeras confirmed this to MoneyWeb on the sidelines of a We Buy Cars media day, but stressed that the discussions are so early and did not name the OEMS. Blomeras added that there is only a small overlap of about 20 to 25% of people who sell their current vehicle to We Buy Cars and also buy their next vehicle from it. There are typically two different sorts of customers, he added. Blomeras said if We Buy Cars also sold new vehicles, it would solve a dilemma for the company. Consumers could then come to one place, weigh up the options between buying a new or used vehicle and make a more informed decision. He added that We Buy Cars believes that by also selling new cars, it might be a clever way to serve the market better, but it's very early days. We Buy Cars sales director Jensen Pointing on Friday reported that the company will be opening 3 more facilities by the end of the year in Cape Town, Montana and Pretoria, and Vereeniging, that to create 500 new jobs. Now we take another breather. The Mentor right back. Don't go anywhere.
They call me Racer X, or in this case, Racer J. All right.
Put your seatbelt on.
Dental checkups, experiments, games.
The mixture is making bubbles and the bubbles have changed color. Our balloon has been filled by carbon dioxide.
We have it all right here on Happy Sprouts. Catch us exclusively on Citian Prime, DSTV channel 294.
Harare. Tune into the beat.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, your source for news, business, sports, fashion, and more.
Experience the pulse of Harare's culture and lifestyle.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, Harare's top radio station.
Join the conversation with Zimbabwe's top personalities.
Subscribe now for fresh and infotainment content daily.
Capital 100.4 FM, Harare's heartbeat.
Welcome back to the Mentor, broadcasting to you live from Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. I'm Eben Mabunda. Now, the Public Investment Corporation and British International Investment have signed a memorandum of understanding to strengthen collaboration on investment opportunities across Africa. Under the agreement, the PIC, one of Africa's largest asset managers, and the BII, the UK's development finance institution, the two organizations will jointly explore for investments aligned with their development mandates. The partnership aims to support key sectors including agriculture, financial services, infrastructure, and climate-related initiatives. Under the MOU, the two institutions will commit to reviewing investment opportunities in debt, equity, and funds and making capital available for high-impact projects across the continent. Abel Sitole, the PIC's outgoing CEO, says the agreement will enable the use of blended funding models to unlock investments that facilitate infrastructure development, industrialization, and trade. British High Commissioner to South Africa Anthony Philipson has welcomed the agreement, calling it a significant step forward in deepening the UK-South Africa growth partnership. BII has been investing in Africa for over 75 years with a $5.6 billion portfolio spread across 810 companies across the continent. Now, green air mobility, represented by air taxis and trainer aircraft with carbon-free power systems, is a major highlight in the ongoing 55th Paris Air Show at the Le Bourget Airport, underscoring global decarbonization efforts. The air show, running from June 16 to 23, is participated by about 2,400 exhibitors from 48 countries and regions. Organizers expect the total visitors numbers to hit 300,000 this year. One of the highlights of this year's show is new developments in air mobility, with next generation air taxis almost ready to take flight. Now, while the Eve Air Mobility taxis haven't yet taken flight, orders for them are sky high, with 2,800 units already sold due to increased demand for sustainable travel. Steve Brecken, Communications and Public Relations Officer of Eve Air Mobility, had this to say.
So this aircraft is all electric. It's got 4 blades to reduce the sound and vibration. There's no emissions from the aircraft whatsoever. And during the manufacturing process, our aircraft is equipped with a water-based paint, so it's water soluble.
Now, from taxis to trainer aircraft, sustainability features are pulling in big sales. Since securing European Aviation Safety Agency certification just 5 years ago, France-based Elixir Aircraft now has a backlog of more than 300 orders. French pilot training school INAC signed 430 Elixir aircraft.
Is to decarbonize the training of a future commercial pilot. So we have major innovation on the way we build the aircraft today that allows us to reduce by 70% the impact, the CO2 impact of the training for a future commercial pilot.
Now, as green alternatives continue to emerge within the aviation sector, the industry goal of net zero carbon emissions by 2050 seems increasingly attainable. Inaugurated in 1909, the biennial Paris Air Show is the world's largest in the aerospace sector, embodying excellence, innovation, and international cooperation in the industry. And the US dollar firmed today as nervy investors sought safety, although the restrained move suggests markets were waiting for Iran's response to US attacks on its nuclear sites that have exacerbated conflict in the Middle East. Iran said that the US attack on its nuclear sites expanded the range of legitimate targets for its armed forces and called US President Donald Trump a gambler for joining Israel's military campaign against the Islamic Republic. Of course, we will be keeping tabs on that developing and unfolding story in terms of how it affects African countries, how it affects Zimbabwe, and what that means for your business and your pocket. And of course, that's a wrap on The Mint today. Do follow us on our social media handles at Zim Papers TV Network, as well as at ZTN Prime. Your views and your thoughts are important to us. Remember to catch us every weekday 2 p.m. Central African Time for the juiciest business stories in Zimbabwe, on the continent, and beyond. I'm Ibn Mabunda, the money man. Let them do what they do. When we do what we do, we mean business. Thank you for watching and have a good day.
dental checkups, experiments, games,
The mixture is making bubbles and the bubbles have changed color. Our balloon has been